Hi, welcome to my studio. Before I start boring you with all the facts and fantastic history of my life, I'm going to show you one of my paintings just to show you that I can actually paint. So I'm an artist. This is one of my latest paintings. It's a BC scape, and I like light and I like abstractness, but I also love realism. So, anyways, this is one of my paintings, and now I'm going to go into my spiel here. I would say that the first history in my life, and I'm going to call that my first history, was the first 10 years of my life in Hungary. I was obviously a Hungarian immigrant from Hungary, and I came to America, but it was in 1956. So before that time, I was living in Budapest, and my early history was essentially that, there were forces that began to shape me into an artist. And some of those forces were basically my parents would take me to churches because Hungary was a very religious country. So I would go to the churches for services, and there were lots of frescoes and fantastic art in these churches. So it had basically instilled into me kind of a noble idea of what art is all about. It was supposed to be almost like a divine gift, and the creativity was obviously part of it, and so was subject matter. So on the way to one of these churches, when I was quite little at the time, I watched an old man who was basically sitting out in front of a church with a sketch, like a drawing board, piece of paper on it, and was using a kind of a Conte color, reddish, brick red kind of a pencil crayon. And he was copying the steeple of the church as a drawing. And I was just absolutely mesmerized by it. I thought, wow, that is unbelievable. So, anyways, I was really encouraged to do that. And so I began to be, it was, began to actually, I began to have an interest with the pencil. Anyways, my mother was obviously a very great encouragement to me, and she always wanted me to be special. I was very lucky because I had a mother that really loved me, and she kept telling me that I was very special. I believed her. Anyways, I began to draw a lot, and I began to do things quite well, as a matter of fact. And there was a Hungarian immigrant actually in Austria. We finally got there before I get into as to how that happened. He was teaching me how to draw Mickey Mouse, which was basically obviously an American cartoon character. And I got actually quite good at it. Anyways, going back to Budapest, it was 1956, and the communists were basically bombarding as much the Hungarian cities as they could, and the Hungarians were fighting back. And anyways, I used to watch the tanks shoot from Budapest. You could see the bullets flying from one to the other, and eventually, in the darkness at night, you could hear them explode and the thunderous roar of a tank exploding and tank bullet exploding. Anyways, that was a kind of an interesting time for me because I was actually really curious about the war element. Guns and the tanks were quite interesting. I was a 10-year-old boy. Anyways, one day, um, the Communist Party came to my parents and told us that unless they joined the Communist Party, they will see to it that I, as their son, would be amount to nothing more than a bricklayer. Well, that really scared my mom and dad because they had bigger dreams for me than just a bricklayer. Anyways, at about the same time, this was getting fall in 1956, at fall time, and we got like a news actually of my uncle Frank, who was basically my mother's brother, who was essentially assassinated by being shot in the head from point blank and from 3 yards away. And we were told that it was a suicide. So that just had an extraordinary shock on the whole family. And at the same time, we were listening to Radio Free Europe. Oh, actually, I think it was the Radio America, Free. I forget the name of it. Sorry. Anyways, the point is that Radio Free Europe, I think, and we used to listen to all the fantastic things that freedom and America had offered as a possibility. So one day after we were listening to one of these programs, next morning I got up. I wanted to go outside. It was a very gray day. It was very dark, and we lived about a block away from the river Danube. And there was a street right next to the Danube. It was called the Arpad Road, I believe. And I was watching these long Russian column of trucks driving on the road. My mother told me that she didn't want me to go outside. She had a bad feeling. So, anyways, I was watching this from the door, and we lived in front of a seven-story uh, apartment complex. It went from the river road all the way to the other side of us. It's a very long apartment block. Anyway, so we lived on quite a large grassy field, and I was watching these trucks going driving by, and all of a sudden there was a an explosion on the windshield of the very first truck that I was happy to be looking at. Anyways, there was a sniper fire, and I think the driver was shot because the truck veered off and hit the corner of the building. Well, all the other trucks stopped immediately, and all those soldiers they jumped off the trucks, and they were like hundreds of them. Anyways, they got off and they started to shoot opposite not towards the river. They kept shooting to the field and the apartment buildings, hoping to find somebody that looked like a sniper to them. Anyways, it was an amazing experience because the flare the I forget the name of they were like red um, so I don't know what the actual name of it. Anyways, they were basically bullets that were like fire, and it was almost like um, a hailstorm of fire, and I was just mesmerized. I was actually quite thrilled with it because it was like a big fireworks. But my mother, my sisters, and my whole family, they were screaming in the back of the house, and I was looking through the front door, and I noticed that our cat was running across the field, and the bullets were just hitting the ground everywhere with big puffs of dust. And I opened the door to let the cat in. Cat ran in, and all of a sudden, the door jamb next to me exploded, and it was interesting because it just went kapow. And as I looked up towards the explosion of the wood, I noticed that my ear got really burned. It's almost like someone putting a cigarette or something against my ear. And I grabbed my ear because I was checking for blood, and there was no blood. But anyways, the one of these bullets obviously grazed my ear, and that was the end. That was it. My mother and my dad said, "That's it. We have got to leave Hungary if we want to have basically a life that's worthwhile living." And like I said, to us, America and the Statue of Liberty was very familiar, and my mother was just in love with America. So we decided to emigrate from Hungary, and we ended up going on a train towards Austria, and we just discovered that the mines were basically picked up, so that the border was open for immigrants to cross. So we decided to cross, and anyways, then my second history starts in Austria, and we were taken to a place called Udenau, which was a big castle, where the Austrians were so kind as to let us actually live there. And anyways, I'm going to cut off here, and I will tell you the next story in my next video. But anyways, if you think this is really exciting to you, and if you like what I have to say, I mean, it is a kind of a boring subject compared to the politics of the day. But anyways, if you like it, please like my video and subscribe, because that way I'll become rich and I'll be able to do more and more of these videos and absolutely mesmerize you with my brilliance. Anyways, thank you very much. By the way, my name is Frank Licsko, the one and only.